welcome to my channel where I bring you weekly lamp working tutorials. This week we're going to be making this Frit Implosion pendant. So hopefully you get something out of this video. If you do, remember to like and subscribe to help support my channel and so you get my future content. Thanks so much. So here you can see the tools we'll be using today. I have my graphite paddle, some clear rods to use as handles, an assortment of tweezers, my reamer, and my graphite pad. And for glass, I'll be using a 15 millimeter clear rod, a rod of jet black, and some caramel frit that you can see I've already poured onto my graphite pad there. We're going to start things off here with a nice bushy flame. I am using both the inner and outer flame on my GTD Sidewinder, and we're going to go ahead and just slowly introduce our 15 millimeter rod into the flame. Once we have it up to temperature, we're going to go ahead and start to form a gather about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit larger. And as you can see here and throughout the rest of this video, I do sometimes speed up the footage just to keep things moving a little bit faster. So once we have a decent sized gather, I'm just going to take that out of the flame here and just use my graphite pad to press the gather into a disc. So you can see what that looks like here. Here's the side and front angle, so you can kind of see the thickness and what that disc looks like. And now I'm just going to polish that real quick before I dip it into the prepared pile of frit there and pick up a pretty decent amount of frit. And now I'm going to slowly introduce that back into the flame. I just want to gradually kind of melt that frit in without causing any bubbles. So at this point, I'm going to begin the implosion process. So basically, I'm hitting the disc at an angle. I'm angled maybe 10 or 15 degrees vertically up away from the flame. And then I'm also angled maybe 15 or 20 degrees away from the flame as well. And I'm trying to saturate heat on the outer edge of the flame. As you do this process, you should start to see a little indent forming in the center of the bottom of the disc. And as that indent grows, you want to periodically just flatten it back out on your graphite pad just to make sure that you're not accidentally going to create a bubble or trap any air in there. And we're just going to continue this process until we start to see our frit kind of grow and flower out into the center of our gather. It's a little bit hard to see here just because of how bright the piece is, but you can kind of see that frit coming out on the other side of the disc from where it began. It's kind of looking like a little bit of a flower design there. So I'm going to go ahead and flatten the back of the piece one more time, and now I'm getting ready to add my background color, which is that rod of jet black. So here I'm introducing the jet black into the flame and also introducing the back of the disc implosion into the flame as well. And once both components are fully molten, I'm going to go ahead and fuse them together here. And once I have a good fuse, it's back into the flame just to do a simple flame cut to cut off the rest of that rod of jet black from the back here. And now you can see there's just kind of a bump of that jet black glass hanging off the back of the piece here. So I'm going to go ahead and saturate that with the flame and just start really melting it into the rest of the piece. And I'm going to use my graphite pad to flatten that out as I go. And I'm going to go back and forth here a few times, just melting that in and then using that graphite pad to flatten it out until I've achieved kind of the shape that I'm going for here. Once I'm happy with that shape, I'm going to go ahead and just reintroduce the back of the piece to the flame one more time to polish off any tool marks. And I'm going to grab a punny and start gradually introducing that to the flame as well. And once I have melted the end of my punny and have it molten, I'm going to go ahead and fuse that right to the center back of the piece. Now I'm going to let that cool down just until I have a nice solid fuse, and now I'm going in with the flame to cut off the rest of that 15 millimeter rod from the pendant. And once I have that rod removed, I'm going to go ahead and go in with my tweezers and just pull the excess glass off the front of the piece. You can see me doing that right here. And I'm going to give it another pull just to kind of get the size that I'm going for here. And that process leaves a little bit of a bump on the front of the piece. So now I'm going to go in with my graphite paddle to support the back of the pendant while I use the flame to melt that little bump in. I am angling my hand down underneath the flame just to let gravity kind of push the shape of the pendant back in on itself. Here you can see everything is looking nice and good and rounded. So I'm going to go in with another handle here and melt the end of that. And I'm deciding which direction I want to be the top of the piece at this point. So I can go in and attach this new handle to wherever I want the bottom to be. So the handle I had on the back did fuse, no big deal. I'm going to go ahead and flame cut that right off and go in with my tweezers here just to clean up the extra glass on the back. And then here I'm just going to be using my graphite paddle, the edge of it actually, to flatten out the back of that piece and make sure it's nice and flush and even. At this point, I'm getting ready to add my loop, so I'm going to go back in with this jet black and reintroduce that to the flame, start forming a little bit of a gather while simultaneously melting the top of the pendant where I'd like to add my loop. I want to make sure that both pieces are fully molten and all the way melted so that I can get a good fuse here. And once I have those attached, I'm going to go ahead and go back into the flame and just continue adding a little bit more of that jet black. And once I have the amount that I want for my loop, I'm going to go ahead and cut off the remainder of that rod. And here I'm basically just melting that clump of jet black into the top of the piece. I want it to be just a nice round even base for my loop here. And I'm going to go in with my tweezers and just pull that loop out. Once I have a good pull, I'm going to reintroduce that to the flame and heat it up just enough that I can use my tweezers to pull it the rest of the way around and attach it at the base here. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and really saturate the heat right at that point where my loop needs to be fused to the top of the piece. And I'm going to make sure that gets fused and use my tweezers to keep the loop open and start to kind of even out any areas of the loop that have more or less glass. And I'm going to kind of just keep going back and forth, putting the loop in the flame, and then using my tweezers and my reamer to kind of shape everything until it's looking nice and round and even. And at this point, I'm pretty happy with how this loop is looking, so I'm going to hit it one more time with the reamer and dip it back into the flame just to give it a quick polish and make sure that there are no rough edges or tool marks. And now I'm going to give that loop just a second to cool before I go ahead and grab it with my tweezers here. Just want to make sure it's not soft anymore so I won't leave any marks. And I'm going to pop that handle off the bottom and give it a quick dip in the flame to polish the punny mark off of the bottom of the piece. And there you have it. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you did find this tutorial helpful. Here's a close-up of the finished piece for you. If you'd like to support my art by purchasing some of it, check out my Etsy store in the description below, and thanks so much for watching.